Hey everybody, Marzi Montezeri here, episode number 3 with the interviews. And I want to say, in life, if you get to make it as far as I have, age-wise, and you get to be lucky to know certain people in life. And I happen to not only, know this person, admire this person, call him a great friend, and cherish our friendship for so many years. And please welcome Larry Barragan, man.
Wow, what an intro, brother.
Oh, I sincerely mean
Yeah,
it. And
man.
I was thinking prior to you getting here, how long we've actually known each other. I've known you longer than I've known Dimebag, and then longer than Rick Del Castillo, who were like my bros.
Yeah.
You are the solid rock that is not only has been that way in my life, but you are a consistent solid rock that's just like it's turned into a diamond, man, throughout your career.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for being here. And I want, this whole thing is about, me admiring people that I admire, getting them here and like talk about their history. And it's like almost personal for me. Get to know you a little bit better, and see like, hey man, where'd you, so let's jump into it.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Where were you, what were you born and raised and grew up and all that good stuff?
I was born in El Segundo here in Houston, in the Mexican neighborhood. To my parents. It's a tragic story, because my grandparents actually raised me, and they raised me because my father actually died a month before I was born of a morphine overdose. And so I have an older brother, and but he was of age to already go to school, so that was like his daycare already. But like me, I was a little baby, so my mom was like, I got to go to work, so can you guys like take care of him? And then I just like kind of stayed with my grandparents, and I never. You don't think when you're a little kid, you don't think like, oh, my dad died or whatever, that wasn't until like later where you start to like, oh man, that's kind of fucked up that happened and how it happened and everything. I never got to know him, and so I would go out with my mom as as an adult. We'd go out, and she'd go, hey, this is Larry. This is my dad's name was Mario. He's like, this is Mario's boy, and they're, oh man, Mario, yeah, dude, he was cool. I liked him a lot, and then it would make me angry because I'd be like, well, fuck, I never got to meet him. I don't know how cool he was. All I know is he was he was on drugs, and he died before I, even got to see him, or he got to see me or anything like that. So, that's where it started, and that's why my grandparents raised me. And then, the house I wouldn't say was terribly musical. I mean, they listened to a lot of Spanish music. Obviously, my grandmother only spoke Spanish. My grandfather, same thing. He could converse with you, but it was a little rough, But he made sure he got his citizenship and all that stuff. He was.
The music was a thing.
Yeah. And so he was like, he was like, whatever he wants, I want him to have it, And he was the same way with my older brother and stuff as well. But like they would they would be cleaning the house and listening to like mariachi music and stuff like that. And so for me now, looking back and actually, some of the songs that I've written, that those, even though it's kind of subconscious, those keys and those those phrases that you heard from the mariachi music and all that stuff coming up, they're still there. There's like a cultural connection for me to that.
They seep through.
Yeah, and so in that instance, I'm very appreciative for what my grandparents would listen to, but they were pretty cool. They listened to like Lawrence Welk. They would watch Lawrence Welk, so I would watch Lawrence Welk.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it was all this big band stuff.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, Lawrence Welk, like, yeah, those dudes, They brought it. They were all reading music and, you know, and
brought it.
horn. Yeah, they were like real. Now you think about like, no, those dudes, you know, it was like, I'm sure the day of, they're like, oh, here's the music we're playing. Like, oh, okay, you know, just kind of thumb through it and then read and play it. You know, I couldn't do that shit now, you know. And then they watched a lot of country music too, like Porter Wagner. They watched Glenn Campbell.
Oh man.
Johnny Cash, Roy Clark. They watched Hee Haw and stuff like that. You know, so I watched it too, and so you know, you kind of see those cats too as well.
Hee Haw was big for me too, man.
Yeah, it was.
Roy Clark.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Roy was a bad man.
Oh yeah.
Roy was a bad
Glenn
man.
Campbell.
Glenn Campbell was badass. You know,
and they played everything.
Unfortunately, the only song that people know is like Rhinestone Cowboy, but they don't realize like how badass a guitar player that guy was. You know.
Yeah, his guitar playing was like almost a secret. Like
Yeah.
really, you know, he was so
Yeah.
big, you know, I guess popular. He wasn't popular for his playing.
No, he was good.
He could play, man.
He was really good, man.
He was really, really good.
Yeah, and so I was exposed to that stuff, and so when I wanted to start playing guitar, I would say I was probably about 9 or something like that.
Oh wow, that's early.
I wanted, yeah, and I went to my grandmother and I said, hey, can I get a guitar? And she said, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And but you know, back then you don't ask your parents like, why not? You know, like, psh, you know, because I said so, you know. And I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, I'm 10. I'm like, ask again, hey, can I get a guitar? And she's like, no, I don't want that for you. And I was like, okay, well, shit, you know. So then my brother starts introducing me to Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple and
wow.
Cream, and you know, he's like, here, you know, this is Kiss, and you know, all these bands.
The advantages of old
yeah,
brothers.
and I was like, wow, dude, you know, all my friends were listening to like Jackson 5, and I was listening to Black Sabbath, you know, Led Zeppelin, and those bands, and so it was you know, it got to the point where I really did want to play drums at one point, and my brother was like, no, don't play drums, dude. And I was like, yeah, drums is cool. And he goes, no, the drummer's in the back. Yeah. And I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah, you know, you don't want to play drums. You want to play guitar, because you know, guitar player's in the front. And I was like, well, yeah, you know, I did want to play guitar at one point. He goes, yeah, that's what you want to play. And so I finally went to my grandmother again. There must have been about close to 13 years old. And I asked again, like, hey, can I have a guitar? And she said, absolutely not.
wow.
And I said, then I was like, I don't understand why not. What's so bad about it? And she said, actually, I think she used to groupie this band, but she said there was this band, and they had left I knew all of them, and they were playing this gig, and I think they had left late at night to go to the next gig, and they were all in the station wagon, and you know, they'd been partying, and they took off, and they crashed, and they all died. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what does that have to do with me, you know? And she said no, because you know, the life of a musician is a life of vice, and I don't want that for you. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm 13. I mean, what vice do I just want to play guitar, you know? So my grandfather used to buy distressed properties, and he would rebuild them, or you know, he'd rent them out, or he'd rebuild them and sell them, you know, flip them. So there was always like pieces of wood laying around. So I said, well, I can't get a guitar, so I'm gonna ask my grandfather to cut this piece of plywood out like this.
Right.
Like this shape right here, dude.
Oh, wow.
Like sharp, like that. That's the way I drew it.
Wow.
And I said, can you cut that out for me? And he said, yeah. I said, okay. And he cut it out, and he was like, looked at it. He didn't know what it was. And I found another piece of wood that was like this, kind of like a neck. And so I took it and I nailed it on there, and I painted it black, and I did the little fret with a, you know, I did everything. And I put nails in the headstock for my tuners, and I drew the pickups and everything, and I painted it silver.
Man, you had the itch.
Oh,
Man.
dude, and then so I found an old belt in a trash can. It belonged to my grandma. I was like, oh, I'll take this and make it my strap. So I nailed it onto that piece of wood, and I would go in my room, turn on the black light, and just like blast out on the stereo Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath and, you know, everything that, you know, my brother was listening to. And I would put a towel on my head because I had short hair. You know, I wanted long hair like the rock stars. So I would put this towel on my head and I would just like pretend I was jamming, you know.
Bro, you took the tennis racket to a stratosphere.
Yeah, dude. It was.
I literally have never heard like that creative to like air guitar.
It was
to your stuff.
It was air
but
guitar.
That's really taking it like the next level. That's some love, man.
Dude, I didn't know. I didn't know it was air guitar.
Tennis racket.
Oh, you did the tennis racket
But
thing?
yeah, you know, like you drew the pickups, man. You
Yeah.
Knew the
Well, I would look
piece,
at the
man.
pictures. You know, my
Yeah.
brother had pictures of Jimmy Page all over the place. Like, oh, okay.
Still,
it's
yeah,
got this
dude,
rectangle thing.
That's
here.
young to be doing that.
Yeah, man. And then so.
That's a lot of love, by the way.
So yeah, and so like you said, you know, it was in me, and so one day I was blasting out, and my grandfather knocked on my door to come eat dinner, and he knocks on the door, and I don't answer. I've got the stereo cranked, man, to 11. You know, I'm like, you know. And he bangs on the door, and he bangs on the door, and then finally he just like opened the door and he flashed the lights, and I was like, oh shit, you know. And I turn around, and I've said this before, I must have looked like a fool. I have this towel on my head, and you know, I'm like probably sweaty, and you know, has this, you know, play guitar on, and he goes, hey man, you know, come to eat. He said in Spanish, he said, come and eat. I said, oh yeah. You know, I turn everything off and I go to eat, and you know, he's sitting at the head of the table, very Latino, sat at the head of the table. I'm sitting here, my grandmother's sitting here, and he goes, tomorrow, go buy him a guitar. And I was like, oh shit. And then she started, no, well, I don't think, and he said, I'm not asking you, man. I'm telling you, tomorrow, there better be a guitar here. If there's not, then I'm going to take him. And you know, I'll buy him a guitar. And she already knew, like, if he bought the guitar, it was going to be expensive. You know, it's like, she could probably buy me like a $50 guitar, it'd be cool. But he was going to go like, okay, yeah, this one, yeah, $1,000, sure. You know, he was like that, you know. And she was like, no, yeah, you know, I'll get it. And so yeah, we went to Kmart, and I got a little Checkmate guitar, and that's where it started, man. I had a little plastic.
And how old were you?
I was right at 13, man. Yeah. And I started.
That's a beauty. You were so driven to get that. Like, I bet. Tell me about how you felt getting that boing.
Oh man, it was awesome, dude. I mean, it had like this. It didn't last long because it had like these little screws, and it had like a little.
It's electric.
It had a whammy bar.
Okay.
But it had like the curly spring.
Right.
And so when you know, I would keep like hitting that bar, you know, like, you know, and then finally the whole thing just went. And I was like, oh man, I fucking broke my guitar, you know. And my grandfather's like, oh yeah, you know, your grandmother bought you a shitty guitar, you know, let's go get you a better one, you know. So after that, I got an Area SG.
Area Pro?
Yeah, it was an SG, like Tony Iommi. Then I was like, this guitar's
Those
like
were
Tony's.
good guitars, man.
Yeah, it was pretty good guitar. And yeah, that's where it started. I just started. There was a guy in the neighborhood that was giving lessons for a little bit, so I went to him. He showed me, like, you know, honky tonk, and you know. That was like the first thing I learned, you know, and then he ended up like skipping town, and I was like, oh, now I have no teacher. But at least I had the basis of like, okay, I know how to tune it now, and I know how to put my hands on it, you know, put my hands on the frets and everything. And so, you know, I went at it alone for a little bit, and then my grandmother found me another teacher. And again, that guy, he was pretty good, and he kind of showed me a lot of stuff, actually, in a short amount of time. But he ended up going to Nashville. Like, you know, I would show up for a lesson, they're like, oh yeah, he's no longer here, he went to Nashville. And I was like, oh man, I don't even remember his name. But I was like, oh, okay. And then at that point, it was just like, all right, well, let's put the record on. Like, listen, I think he's doing this, and just over and over
wow.
again, and just like trying to develop your ear. I had to. I wanted to play, and I wanted to play those songs. So yeah, so how I started. Just like, how does that go?
Your teachers bailed on you. You were forced to do this.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, I'm just gonna just take it on my own, and I listen to these cats and stuff. And another funny thing is that my brother had said, yeah, man, probably by the time you've been playing, about 5 years, you'll probably be ready to play in a band, And I was like, oh, cool, yeah. Yeah, I had like a goal then, like in 5 years, I'm gonna try to get in a band. And so he'd take me around his friends that played guitar, and they were like, hey, man, your brother coming along, And yeah, he seemed pretty proud of me. He was like, yeah, he's getting pretty good. And so I had these friends that would call me, and they're like, hey, man, can you, we're kind of trying to put together a band. Would you like to play guitar? And I'd be like, nah, I've only been playing for about 3 years, dude. So, I'll be ready in a couple more years. And they're like, oh, okay. And then, some other friends called and like, hey, man, you want to jam? We're putting a band together. And I was like, nah, I've only been playing for like 3 years, And my brother was in the room, and he goes, what just happened? I said, oh, man, these guys want me to play in the band with them, but, you said I'd be ready like after 5 years, so that's what I told him. And he was like, you're such a dumbass, He's like, no, dude, go jam with them, you're ready. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool, and that's when I got like his.
I get it though, man.
Yeah,
I get it.
That's
that's so respectful.
Yeah.
Of you to like have had an idea of like what your brother thought, and you were like, I'm gonna stick to this game plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Till he let you go.
Yeah, and then he was like, no, dude, come on, you're ready. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then that's when I started, playing with different guys in the neighborhood and stuff, and then it just progressed and progressed and progressed, and.
What was like the first kind of songs you was playing with your friends?
I think we did a lot of Rush.
Oh wow, dude! You
we
started
did
off playing Rush.
Well, it was the whole. It was those songs. It was the early Rush, So
yeah, that's tight though. Yeah.
It was.
That's before Neil.
Right before, right before Neil, and then when those albums came out, well, we had already been playing, together for a year and a half. So yeah, everybody kind of progressed, and we started doing like 2112 and those songs.
So you were playing with some decent people, man.
Yeah. I mean, it turned into Hellstar. I mean, the Hector Pavon was the original drummer in Hellstar, and he was like probably the second drummer I ever played with. Paul Medina was the bass player, and he was a total Geddy Lee freak, so he was just like learning all that stuff. So yeah, these guys already they were committed as well, So
how long? But I mean, playing that stuff, takes a bit of like you got at that age, you got to have practice and know the instrument. And when did you know you were like kind of like? Did you know yourself, or did like you said, well, your brother set you free? But I guess you were how old were you? You had already been feeling with 16?
Probably about 15 by then, yeah. 15, almost 16.
And how much did you practice to
all
be
the time,
so tight?
Just like you. I mean, look, how many times did you like wake up and this thing was in your hand?
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, it's time to, what time is it? Oh man. I can put it up, and go to sleep, actually fall asleep. But, it was just like, it got to that point where my grandma was, all right, but, do your homework first. So you're hauling ass doing your homework,
So you can get to it.
And so you could get on it, and you eat your dinner, and then you're just back on her going, over and over and over and over and over again, just to You know?
Well, I mean, who taught you that? That's a chromatic exercise, right?
Yeah, it's like the first guy that I
Okay,
went
so
to.
you did have some really good pedigree.
Yeah, he taught me how to, put my fingers
And
on
your
the
brother
fretboard
got
and
you with the
everything.
music.
Yeah, he got me like that. That was like the goal. Like, okay, you'll learn how to play, and maybe you'll learn how to play some crappy stuff like, I don't know, When You're Smiling or something like that. And I'm dating myself because, kids today don't even know When You're Smiling, that song, but that's kind of one of the first, 1, 2 note or 1 or 2 string songs that I learned, and along with honky tonk and stuff. And so the goal was, I want to play Led Zeppelin. I want to play, the Deep Purple stuff. I want to learn how to play that stuff, And back then, most of those guys that would give lessons, they wanted to teach you how to read first, And I was like, I had no interest in that.
Right.
I was like, I want to learn how to play this song that, it's called Iron Man, Yeah.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like I said, after that, the last guitar teacher I had, I just started going like, all right, well, I guess I just got to teach myself and
Teach
just,
yourself.
You look at other guys and, other players in the neighborhood and stuff that, like, they would know a song like, oh, how did you play that, man?
Right.
And back then, nobody was like, hey, man, I'm not teaching you this, it
Training
wasn't like
licks
that.
was a
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, it goes like this, dude. Like, oh, okay, cool, thanks, Or they'd be, hey, you play that one song, man. How does that one go? Like, oh, I learned it like this, And so
That opens up so many doors, right?
yeah, man, just the fact that you're jamming with different people and stuff. And
What was the one band that you got exposed to that you turned your brother on? Like, you come of age now, you're kids around you are like, what was, your brother obviously gave you such a incredible pedigree.
Dude, he doesn't play an instrument, but his ear for music is impeccable. I mean, he could tell you like, oh, that guitar player's badass. You should listen to that guy.
Right.
And so he turned me on to quite a few bands. I think the only band that maybe I would have probably turned him on to was like Iron Maiden.
Okay.
I was like, hey, I like these guys. And he was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's cool. But he went to see Motorhead and Ozzy. I didn't go to that show with him. He would take me to a lot of shows. That's the other thing. He took me to my first show, which really was like, that's what I want to do,
Which one?
Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. That was my first show.
I can't imagine because, I've only seen, footage.
Yeah, no, he came
But
out
being
on
a
the
kid?
bed, the smoke, and it was like, whoa, man, and welcome to my nightmare. And he had like all the musicians and the props and everything. It was, oh, yeah,
Wow.
it was mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing. I don't know how old I was, but when that album came out, we went.
I saw
we
the
went
video
together.
when I was younger.
Yeah.
And he was like, not on a bed, but on a tombstone. And he just comes off of it and he goes, welcome to my nightmare. And, when you're a kid back then,
Yeah.
when you're that innocent and you just see the, like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
killer.
Yeah, it was badass. It was.
But seeing it live, I
But-
can't even imagine.
Well, the one thing that really blew me away was, because I was probably already playing guitar by then, was they played the song Black Widow, and there was this big spider web that came down, kind of a rope-looking spider web. And there was these 2 spiders, in costume. They were fighting on this spider web, and down on the bottom was the 2 guitar players. And they were like battling it out, and I was on the solo, like one would do the part, and then the other one would do the part.
Oh,
and I was,
man.
I was like, oh God, oh my God, man, it was.
and you were
like,
young.
Yeah, man, it changed my life, dude. I was like, oh, that's it. I want to do that.
And how old were you when you saw that?
Man, I don't remember. I
That
think
was-
it was
that
like
was-
76.
Wow, you were a baby.
Yeah, I was little, man. I
So
was a
yeah,
young
this
kid,
was. So yeah, no wonder you wanted the guitar, man.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Is that where the bug came or no? Like what?
no, I just wanted one, man.
You always
I
had- yeah,
I
right.
just had it in me that I wanted to
Guitar.
play an instrument, you know. And like I said, my brother taught me how to playing
and then your
drums, you know.
You held you back from playing drums.
He just said, nah, yeah, they're in
and
the
your
back.
grandma held you back.
Period. You know, she was like, no. That's a life of vice, you know.
She probably just set fire that ignited a whole another.
Maybe. It wasn't like I was rebelling or anything. I just wanted to play, you know.
Not that, but, I get it because, my father never wanted me to play guitar.
Yeah.
But he would take my guitar and go hide it.
The interest...
Before talent shows and shit.
Oh, no.
Oh, it sucked.
The interesting thing is that, years later, I was like, oh, man, she's right. She was right.
She was right.
The life of a musician is a life of vice, man. I mean, I don't care if you play at the church.
But you didn't want to.
You play at the church because you had a life of vice, and now you're trading that life of vice for another vice, which is Jesus Christ or whatever. That you're
church gigging bros.
Yeah.
You know what's up.
You know what's up, man. You like that wine a lot, But yeah, you kind of realize that, and then now when because I have friends that well, hey man, my son's learning how to play guitar or bass, or hey, he's getting really good at drums. I'm like, how old is he, man? He's like, oh man, he's 15 or he's 16. I was like, I'm gonna give you some advice, man. And some of this you're not gonna like, but I'm telling you right now, being a musician, it's a life of vice. It's women, it's pills, it's booze, it's weed. It's something, man. And I said, so if you're gonna, if he's really getting good, then he's gonna be better than his peers, because those kids that are driven to actually play and learn how to play, they excel, they exceed what everybody else is doing. And who's up here? Well, it's a guy named Marzi. It's Larry. It's these guys that are 20, 21, 22. They're already ready to play in clubs, and they're already, ready to go out and, go to San Antonio and play, or go to Dallas and stuff. So your son's going to be, 17, 18, still not really at the age to drink and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, so you got to be the roadie. You got to be there every rehearsal, every gig. You have to be there.
Imagine.
So because otherwise, man, sky's the limit for that kid, because the next thing you know, it's like, hey, check out this chick. Oh, man, snort this before you go on and make you feel faster, and hey, smoke this and mellow you out, So, you're actually gonna, they're gonna get exposed anyway, but you're accelerating that, and at least maybe you can have them, keep it under control a little bit, until.
Yeah, because I personally have played with a drummer. He was 19 at the time, and his dad always was, and he was a fill-in drummer. And his dad came, and he was his roadie.
Yeah.
And he just set up, and he played a single kick, but he had learned all the songs. And I had to keep looking back because he played all the double bass stuff.
Yeah.
And then he broke it down. He went. Now he's playing in Nashville, got his own kid and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it happens. It can happen.
But that dad was
holding
smart.
you back. Yeah.
That kid was smart.
But then being exposed to the bad parts and not wanting it for your grandchildren or your children is natural, of course.
Yeah.
But how you go about it is different, in life. Because for me, I'll never forget it. On Antoine Drive, I was in, I think, 7th grade or 8th grade. I just met Bloss, and we were about to play. I told my dad at Pizza Inn that we were about to, I was going to begin a band, which was like my dream, actually, way before that, and that we were going to play a talent show. I was really, high up here,
yeah.
And he bursted my balloon, man. He started cursing me out in Farsi, and totally different language. Back then, it was so embarrassing at Pizza Inn. Everybody's looking at us, and he was like, and I'm, now I see that he saw something, man, bad with music that, he didn't want. And then my vice was literally just the guitar. I was obsessed with it, like you.
That's what it
I
starts.
didn't care about anything else.
Yeah.
I just wanted to play guitar.
Yeah.
I think the only thing, for me, it was just straight up girls, man. I didn't have a problem with drugs and stuff like that. Maybe at some point I did, yeah. But yeah. I was like, oh, this goes with it.
It's funny you bring up Bloss, man. I remember being at I think it was backstage, and he was just gonna start playing with Slaughter,
Slaughter.
and he was like, hey man, we're looking for a guitar player. You know, I'm gonna be jamming with Mark Slaughter and stuff. You know, and I was like, oh okay, well, he just kind of threw it out there, and I was like, well, what are you guys doing? He's like, oh, we're doing like this kind of commercial type stuff, and I was like, stop, I'm not, you know, I wasn't even about that, you know.
That was not your bag.
Yeah, it just wasn't what I was into. I mean, now I think about like, well, shit, man, would have been all over MTV and stuff, and you know, would have been much
You
different
mentioned
life,
Blas,
you know?
man, and you know, because you know he was my best friend
Yeah.
in America. So you know, the amount of phone conversations we would have, we knew every single second of our lives. You know, I get it. There's so much more I want to get to, but I already we talking about Blas. So
Yeah.
Blas and I discovered you on our own, and so that's gonna like I have to go back and go. How in the hell did you like be like our age and be on the radio playing original music, where we're sitting there looking at each other, and we loved music, we loved everything about music. So you have to understand that the experience that we had, and he'll tell you right now, he'll remember it. He remembers it like it was yesterday. We weren't old enough to drive, so we were always piled up in the car and stuff like that. Linda Silk, KLOL radio station, played local music. When Hellstar came on, we didn't know what to think. Like it really didn't. It was so tight. James, it freaked us out, and we were like, oh, we knew songs, we understood songs, and we were hearing a song, a real song. Out of a Houston band? Are you kidding? It was like freak, And then you guys are like Houston legends, man. But I mean, again, you're putting out albums, and I'm in the back of a car listening to it on the radio. And Blas's story, by the way, real quick, because I want to get to that, like what I was just saying, like how the hell did you get there? He was jealous, I think, because he wanted to be in Hellstar. From what he told me, like he was not full-blooded Mexican, so at the time he was not. He was not. That's what he said, because he was half. And he just wouldn't let me in because I'm half. I said, "Are you sure? Maybe it's something else. Maybe you're too young or something." Because you guys had Jeff, you guys had,
Oh no.
It's a multicultural.
It wasn't even about that. Well,
Okay.
Mikey's black, so I mean, it's not even about that. But
well, that's Blas calling you out, Blas.
hey, Blas.
But Blas and
I think I don't even remember you trying out for the band.
Yeah, he was just like we were just babies coming out, and you guys were already like legends. You know what I mean? And yeah, to be that practiced, to be that tight, to be like having your influences to a way like you go write original music like this. That's right. I mean, where was that transition?
Well, it was like for me, it was like once we started playing like the Maiden and we did a lot of Angel Witch. I don't know if you know who Angel Witch is, but we did a lot of the Angel Witch stuff, and they were really more of an influence than even Maiden and Priest. I mean, we straight up like ripped off parts of the Angel Witch songs on the first album.
That's so awesome.
And so when we were doing these, we were cutting our teeth on Saxon, and we were doing covers of a lot of bands that people had not yet heard of.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times they would come up to us and be like, hey, is that original music? Like, no, that's Saxon. Oh, no, that's Budgie. No, that's a band called, Legs Diamond. We used to do Underworld King from Legs Diamond.
And this is a long time.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was doing that stuff back then. But what's funny is that people in San Antonio, they had Kiss, the Kiss radio station, and Joe Anthony he was playing all that stuff over there, but we didn't get that station here. We just did it on our own. We just kind of, went out and go like, oh, this album cover looks cool, and you put it on like, oh, I don't like it, or you put it on like, oh, this is good, So then it just kind of took off like that, and then you start kind of reading more magazines, and you go out and you buy these albums, and I want to play that song, and we started learning all these covers. We didn't think they were obscure, but they probably were for back then. Everybody was still doing like the Cars and that type stuff, Loverboy. And we had a guy that had joined the band for a little bit, and he was like, "Man, you guys, you're not gonna make it doing originals, man. We need to play like the top 40 type stuff."
He was in the band.
He was in the band. He was in the band for a little bit. His name was Joel.
So you started off all original.
No, we started off doing
okay, yeah,
covers,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
You just mentioned.
But then
when did the transition to that? When did that become?
We just said, hey,
who
well,
wrote like the first song?
let's just start writing some songs. Let's do this. And then he was like, nah, that's not gonna work. And I was like, why? We can't like play the top 40 stuff and then play our stuff. And I was like, no, nobody wants to hear your stuff. They want to hear this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that went on for a little bit. We played some bar out in Pasadena, and my brother came and we did. I think we did. We did a Loverboy song, and he came up. He was laughing. He was like, "Dude, that sounded like Judas Priest playing Loverboy. It didn't even sound." He was like, "It was too heavy, dude," and and so he's laughing. He was like, he even said like, you should just kind of keep to your songs or whatever. And eventually that guy, went on to do something else. He left the band, and so he left us to our own vices. We're like, okay, well, let's just keep writing. He said we couldn't do it.
And this is high school still.
Yeah.
And so who we got in the band right now?
By now it's Hector Pavon. It's the first version of Hellstar was me, Hector Pavon, this cat named John Diaz, this guy on bass his name was Buddy Tamayo, and we had a couple of singers. We had this one guy that he was awesome. He sounded like Rob Halford, but he couldn't remember the words.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, I don't even want to say his name because I'm gonna call him out. But he was amazing vocalist, but he just couldn't remember the words. And then we got this other guy in, and I thought like, oh, this guy's pretty good. And his name was Joseph. And then Joseph joined, I think, the Marines. So he was gone. Like, oh shit, now we're like back at kind of square one. But we had already started to kind of try to write some songs. But that band was actually doing, all those like obscure metal songs for back then. And then, right as we were getting ready to find somebody to sing, the guitarist was like, he was older than us. Again, he was older. So he was like, man, I'm leaving the band, man. I'm going to go back to school and stuff, And I was like, oh, shit. Well, here, so then we ended up kind of reforming the very first band we were in. It was Hector Pavon, it was Paul Medina, and myself. And then we recruited this guitarist, Tom Rogers, who's on the first album. And he had some songs already. So I was like, oh, cool, man, we can do that, And we had seen James singing for some other bands, and I was like, man, that dude's pretty good. I like that guy a lot. And we had some singers, and for some reason the singers always kind of fell off, and so we kept, I kept watching James, and I was like, man, that band he's in, like, I don't think they're gonna do anything. They're, they got one original, and
you had aspirations for this band.
Yeah, so I'm like,
on.
so somehow or another I get a hold of James, and I go to his apartment and tell him, hey man, you should consider maybe joining our band. We had played some Battle of the Bands, and we both lost or whatever, but I told James, like, yeah, maybe at some point, you'd want to like come on board. We're going to be doing a lot of original music, and we're going to do some covers too, obviously, but let me know, man. And so he eventually was like, yeah, I'd like to try it out. So we came over, he kind of auditioned, and I think we played Kill the King, and I think we did like maybe Neon Nights or something like that.
Oh, wow.
It was already after Purple, and the first Sabbath Heaven and Hell album had already come out. So yeah, we were doing that stuff, and I mean, he had those Dio-ish kind of voice back then as well. So
that's huge.
Then he could hit high notes too, so it was like, oh, you kind of best of both worlds, and then yeah, we just kind of took it from there.
Did you guys jam? What was your first time jamming with James? Did you like impress the heck out of you?
Oh yeah, man. He was,
you know, I have to say, you and James are like, you know, you got like Robert Plant and Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen, David Lee Roth, Joe Perry, you know, Steve Italian.
Yeah.
You and James are just like that. You know, you two, you know, like, you know, it's like sometimes just things just work, man.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's worked for so long.
I tell people too, it's like, you know, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like James' voice, you know, but I also tell people, yeah, there was a lot of people that didn't like Ozzy's voice. There's a lot of people that didn't like Kevin DuBro's voice.
It's what
you know,
caught our attention.
You know, but it was
like the metal was like insanely killer.
Yeah.
And tight. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you hear it like on the radio. Then James comes on, and you're like, whoa, you know, he like literally, you know, kicked it up a notch, man.
Yeah, I mean, James has an original voice. That's the whole thing. Is that I don't think I've ever heard anybody, you know, that sounds like him. You know, he's got bits and pieces of like a Hofford and a Dio or whatever, but he still sounds like James.
He really does.
You know,
he's very theatrical.
And it's pretty important to have someone that has their own voice and that can identify a band like that. You know, it's like when you hear like the first, come on, feel the noise.
Right.
You know it's Kevin.
Right.
You just know it is. Whether you liked him or not, you knew.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
identified the band. And I think that's something that's like kind of missing now with a lot of bands.
You're
They don't have
absolutely
that
right.
vocalist that you can like listen to and go like, oh, that's, you know, so-and-so.
Because
I
they
know
all
this
sound
band
the
coming
same.
up, you know. Yeah.
I
Some,
hate to say
you know,
some, right?
you know.
I sound like an old man. I am.
Yeah.
I got to ask you this. Throughout this history, was it always called Hellstar?
Yes.
Who
Well,
came,
well,
who
the
came
very-
up with that name?
The very first band was called Black Rose,
Oh,
and then
cool.
and then
Still cool.
and then that kind of broke up, and then when Hector and I started playing with John Diaz, he said, "What do you think of the name Hellstar?" And I said, "Oh, I like it, man." And I said, but I grabbed this idea from Def Leppard. I was like, let's play it. Let's spell it different. Let's spell it Helstar, and we'll have like that center letter. Maybe we can do something with the S. So it'll be 3 and 3, and then the S in the middle. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I like that idea," you know. And that's how the spelling came about. And he didn't really have like where it came from or anything. He just kind of thought it up, like, "Hey, let's call the band Hellstar." And yeah, we just kept it and
It's
never
brilliant.
let go.
It's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's one of those things, like, I mean, you know, and like my life, you know, personally, looking at music news and stuff,
Yeah.
like, just every time I saw it, man, it was just like, like Metallica or something. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? It
yeah.
was like that name. You guys, like, you landed gold with
Well,
it.
I
When
mean-
did the logo come about?
Right on the first album, the
Yeah.
European label didn't like our cover here in the U.S., so they made their own. They licensed some artwork, and the Hellstar they created was kind of based on the original logo, the U.S. logo, and they put that star in it. And then we said, well, we'll use that now from here on out, and that's
It's
how
just
that
epic,
came from.
man.
Yeah.
Truly epic.
Yeah.
Truly
So,
epic.
We've done we've modified it a little bit, you know, when we did King of Hell, we kind of modernized it a little bit, but it's still basically the same logo. And it's funny that, you know, you talk about, you know, Hellstar. If I go to shows, they may not know my name, but they'll go like, Hellstar, you know, and I turn around, hey man, what's going on, you know? So it's, yeah, I've you know, the guys in the band embody that name, that moniker, you know,
Yeah.
and it's been
It's
really
legendary, man.
special for us, you know.
Yeah, it's special for the
40
for the-
years, you know.
That's incredible. It's
Yeah.
it's legendary for the city. When was that first album? What year did that come out?
That was 84.
84.
Yeah, I recorded it when I was 19, and
So
then
many-
it came out when I was 20.
That's incredible,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, really. I mean, we had recorded a demo. That's how we got signed. We had done this demo, and there was back in tape trading days, so, and you know, people were trading it around. Next thing I know, somebody says, "Hey, have you ever seen this magazine from the UK? It's called Metal Forces." And I was like, oh, yeah, I know Metal Forces. And he goes, yeah, you guys are like the #1 demo. And I was, get the fuck out of here. Like, no, look. And then they showed me, I was like, Hellstar demo, #1. I was like, holy shit, how did that happen, you know?
Wow.
But it was just, it just spread, you know, people were just like handing it, must have handed it to somebody who wrote
So
for
it
the
was your
magazine.
demo that got you guys?
Yeah, the demo.
And
actually.
it wasn't you guys seeking. It was like word of mouth got out.
Yeah, we didn't, I mean, yeah, everybody has the aspiration of, you know, recording an album and stuff, but, I mean, the demo for us was like, hey, this is, you know, check out our band, check out our band, check out our band, you know, just like, you know, pass it around, and then next thing I know, like, this Metal Forces issue, I don't even know what issue it was, but it had us in there, and then, yeah, then someone said, hey, this label called Combat, you know, reached out and they want to talk to you guys about signing a record deal. And I was like, oh, come on, man, you know, it can't be happening, is it already? You know, and yeah, sure enough, man, we signed the deal and we recorded the album, and you know, there was some stuff that happened business-wise that, you know, we probably never recovered from it, you know, not even after we got rid of the management at that time. It was a family member of somebody in the band who had good intentions, and they wanted to manage us, but they had no credibility. They had, you know, they didn't know how to go about things, and so it in the end it kind of looked bad on us, you know, and it got to the point where I was like, man, I'm gonna have to bail, because I can't go on like this, you know.
Oh, wow.
So I actually left the band right after the album.
The first one?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I left the band for a little bit because I was like, I'm not going to work with this guy anymore, you know. We had already made a few business mistakes, and I was like, this is not going to happen. So I started to create a band called Betrayer, and I had a singer, and I had Jerry Abarca playing bass. But we couldn't find the other two guys. We kept, you know, kind of looking around, and it couldn't find anybody. And then James called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, I think you're right. You know, I'd like to, you know, if you can come back into the band. I found a new management, and maybe we can, you know." And I was like, "Well, you know, I pulled this other guy out of a band already. Man, I'm not gonna, you know, blow him off." And he said, "Well, maybe we can, you know, yeah, let's just, you know, reform the band. We'll get Jerry in the band and kind of like take it from there." And well, those guys didn't like it because they were family members, you know. So then they were like, well, F you guys, you know, are out, you know. So like, all right, well, we're keeping the name,
Right.
and so there was like a little fight there for a little bit for the name, and yeah, James and I ended up. It was our band.
Rightfully
you know?
so, yes.
Yeah, it was our band. It's and like it or not, to this day, it's our band. You know, I'm not saying that the guys in like Mikey and Garrick and Andrew aren't important pieces of this band.
Oh, you totally
but
understand.
when it comes down to who the band belongs to, it belongs to James and to me.
We're going, you know, back to 1984 when you put this thing out.
Yeah, and so that's
Problems arose right off the bat. I want to ask you something. So during this process, I'm reading music news, and then we were all over it back then, you know, and it was really, really more thrilling to read about Hellstar than it was really Metallica or something like that. You know what I mean? It was just like more for me, local guys doing this good, and then finally the the legend, you know, you get back then, no internet, no this and this, just word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
Hellstar is opening up for Stryper.
Yeah.
Which is Michael Sweet's a good friend of mine,
Yeah.
but it's like, and then that's like an epic night, isn't it?
It was, man. I mean, we played.
Because I can tell you, I wasn't there, and I only heard stories. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That tale, you know.
So that was we had already recorded Remnants of War, the second album, and so yeah, this kid came available, and we're like, well, you know, Stryper, they're the Christian band and stuff.
We call
Hellstar. And yeah, and they're like, no, you know.
And back then, their audience were pretty strict.
They were
like,
all
not, you know, yeah.
Yeah, they were all into the Bible and stuff, and so but these guys that were putting it on were like, no, I think it'll be a great, because they were looking at it like, we had just played at the old Club Cardi's, and we had already been out with Anthrax, and we had headlined Cardi's as well, and to a pretty big crowd, and then so I'm sure that guy's looking at, well, we just booked Stryper into the Coliseum. We need a good local to open up and bring that in.
Gig. Was that your biggest gig?
At that point, yeah. I mean, it was the arena.
No, dude.
I mean, I had just seen Dio play there like a couple of weeks before,
And then you're on that stage.
And so it was like, oh man, I can't believe it. I
sort of regret not seeing this shit.
And so we even got the limo and everything. We did it up, man. We got the limo. We drove into the arena,
man.
And we had our ladies with us and everything. And one of our friends she did hair, so she was doing her hair backstage and everything. And we went up there and again, like this is how raw we were. Is that when we went to do sound check, I came in, I had 3 Marshall stacks.
Wow.
They were all on. They were all working, and Rob had like 2, I think, on his side, and then Jerry had some crazy, like he had bass cabinets on both sides of the stage. So we were doing well with the cabinets and everything. We looked good up there. And so the monitor guy goes, so what do you want in the wedges? And I was like, I don't know, vocals? And he's like, oh, do you want some vocals in there? Like, yeah. He goes, how about some kick snare? I was like, no, I'm fine. And he said, do you want any bass in there? And I was like, no. And Jerry's loud,
Right.
So it's like, he's like looking at us like, oh, okay. And he asked the other guys, and everybody else was like, oh, I don't know, we've never played at a place that, that big that we know where we needed monitors. You just fucking cranked your amps up to whatever, and it was loud, and you could just kind of stand in one spot and you could hear everything, and we got out there and it was like, oh my God, I can't hear anything.
Oh, wow.
So you're kind of
so big.
Yeah, it was like, I'm just kind of trying to find a place to play and stuff, and we'd play a song and then we'd hear boo, boo, and then you'd hear it was like a mixture. You'd hear like all the real metalheads were like, yeah, ooh, ooh, like after every song, man.
Wow.
Yeah, the Christians did not like Hellstar.
I'm pretty positive it was at the time period.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
it was strictly the name.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with the music.
Oh yeah, they probably
love
didn't.
It if you guys
they probably didn't
Angels.
know anything. They probably didn't know anything. Yeah, if we would been called, Angel Star or something like that, they would have been like, yeah, this is great.
You need to do that. You need to do an acoustic album.
Yeah, Angel Star.
Get James to wear all white and stuff. That is like so. I have to ask you another question about that gig. Okay, it's the myth that I heard. It was like after it happens, it happened with Bob Rock. When we were in Clifton, he went in like at Scarborough High School and did this drum solo that everyone was talking about.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
There.
Yeah, we came up to the catwalk and all that stuff. I wasn't there, but I heard about it. You know what I mean?
I was there. I remember that.
So, Hellstar opens up for Stryper, which is like at the time, like the Stryper, like again, they're Michael Sweet is one of the best people I've ever met in my life, and I know they weren't this way, but their audience again were very strict, so they're hating on the band name. I heard that they start throwing mini Bibles at you guys.
It was the little they were.
Is this true? Because they were giving them at the show.
Everybody had them at the show, and the next thing we know, it's like.
This is so awesome. Yeah. It's raining Bibles at the Hellstar show. Man.
But they couldn't. They weren't really making it to the stage. Like maybe 1 or 2 made it to the stage, but you're in an arena and there was the barricade was so far away, and these guys were like throwing it, and they're like kind of falling in front of the. But I could see them, like in the air and stuff.
That's crazy. Wow, only if they really knew how loving you guys, are.
Well, I mean, they were, they just saw the name and that was it. They were like, that's the devil. you know.
Knee-jerk reactions
Yeah,
right there more
yeah,
like a
but,
lot quicker.
I talked to Michael one of the last times. Oh, actually, Michael performed at my bass player's wedding because I have the band,
Right.
yeah, Santa Oscuridad, and he performed at Ray's wedding, and so I talked to him and I said, "You probably don't remember me, man, but we opened up for you guys here in Houston at the Coliseum as an arena gig." And I can't remember the year, but you guys had like all the stripes and everything and the cabinets and everything. And he was like, "God, I don't remember." And I said, "Yeah, I went. I had like 3 Marshall stacks." And Oz walked up to me and he goes, "Are these all on?" And I said, "Yeah, they're all on." And he said, "All 6 cabinets are working. So all these 100-watt heads are all connected?" And I said, "Yeah, they're working." And I went, "Gong." He's like, "Holy man." He goes, "Wow." And I said, "What are you playing?" He goes, "I got like 1 cabinet over there." But they have like this huge stage of cabinet, fake cabinets, everything. And he was like playing out of a 412 or something.
Wow.
Yeah. But, they knew what they were doing. They had like everything pumped through the monitors. And
How did you get there with the guitar though, man? How do you know how to use 3 heads at once? Like, where you as a guitar player, your stories are like so in depth with the band and everything. How did your tone search come? Where you got like, tell me about that tone that day. And
I was
running.
running 3 100-watt stacks, and I was running them off of a TC Electronics distortion pedal, and next
All 3.
Well,
okay.
I plugged into that TC Electronics distortion pedal, plugged into a TC Electronics chorus. Now that pedal, the reason I was playing that is because Scott Ian was playing that.
Okay.
And so Scott had said, "Yeah, this is what I use, man. You should buy one." And he was like showing me his tone, and I was like, "Oh man, that sounds so badass."
Dude gets tone.
Yeah, and so I plugged that into the chorus. Well, the chorus was stereo. So out of the stereo, I plugged one into one head. The other plug went into a splitter. And I split from that, I plugged into one head and then to the third head. That's how I ran them.
That's
so
clever.
I didn't know if it was right or wrong, but that's how I did it.
You had to figure it out.
Yeah,
that's how you figured it out.
Yeah, and it sounded pretty good.
I can't even imagine what it sounded like.
It was crunchy. And then
so was the distortion going, like, ended up, the TC Electronic distortion affecting all 3 heads?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I get it. Man, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. 3 heads?
It was 3 100-watt heads. I would put
most
them,
I've ever done is 2 half stacks.
I'd put them like at I think I would crank them to about 3 or 4. They were loud.
You really didn't, especially with
It was just wide. It was so wide too. I could kind of walk back and forth in front of the stacks and not really lose anything.
Nothing, man, yeah.
But it was pretty loud, and I mean, I wear hearing aids now. Because of that, it's 3 100-watt stacks and then a cymbal right here for 40 years. Psh, 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 psh. It's like, oh man, yeah. So I went to go get my hearing check. Like, yeah, you're
because you didn't wear earplugs throughout these years.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it just even now. I mean, I'll put them in, but I don't like it. It just I bought the ones that are supposed to be for music, but they just don't sound the same. If it would just still sound the same, just lower, that'd be cool. But they don't,
They don't.
Yeah,
They
I don't care what they say. Like, oh, especially for music, but no.
I've had headphones on where it cuts the highs out
Mm-hmm.
for drummers, and at a studio, put them on, and you go in there, and it's pretty interesting, man. You hear the cymbals, but it takes the hiss out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But guitar, it's like you want to be inside of it.
Yeah,
so
you kind of have to
feel it, every bit of it.
Yeah.
So on that show again, you said like the monitors, right?
Yeah.
It was like, so what happened? How'd you pull it? I mean, you guys had how long of a set that night? 30 minutes?
I think we played a good 40, 45 minutes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and because it was us and them. That was it. It was only 2 bands.
That is a. And
Yeah,
you're playing the
so-
Coliseum.
We're playing the Coliseum. I was
You're
like, man,
excited, all these good
I
things.
saw Dio here. I just seen Ozzy with Randy there, and like, it was like that's where everybody big played, man. So it was like,
Did the booze affect you?
uh,
Because you like it's like such a
I-
such a high, and then was it a low? Or did you just go? Did you guys have each other?
yeah, I don't think it was just like, well, obviously we knew going into it, like,
You had
this is
to,
going to
yeah.
be kind of
Challenging.
It might be kind of a hard sell, but yeah, I don't remember it, bringing me down or anything. I think we finished the show. We had a little crew back then, so they loaded up the equipment truck, and we jumped back into the limo and we went to a party.
That's
you know.
awesome, man. That is so awesome. And you played a show that's like, again, legendary.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I still have that ticket stub.
That's awesome.
I think I still do. I think it's on one of the. I have some pictures in the hallway. You've seen them. I think one of them has the ticket stub stuck in it.
That's awesome.
I'll send you a
awesome.
picture of it.
That's awesome. Since the Marshalls, what else happened with Tone? What brought you to? I kind of wanted you to bring it, but I know you got a flight rig that's just like this big.
Yeah.
And it has everything in it, and I've heard it, man. That's another thing with you. You've put out so many albums throughout these years. Your tone's constantly gotten better. Before we started actually taping this, I made the comment. I was like, because your consistency reminds me of Daryl. I was
Right.
like, man, do you ever mess up? It's not even like what
Yeah,
you're playing.
it's
It's
a
like
total-
how you play it.
It's a total mess up every time.
Yeah, but it doesn't
Every
sound
show, there's
like
like,
it.
oh
It
my
doesn't
God, I
sound
can't
like
believe
it.
I fucked up on that part.
that means initially, you put so much in there that's
But,
embedded in you.
So the tone chasing did kind of start back then, and then I guess I used that rig all the way up to Nosferatu. Then the 90s happened where grunge took over, and then it was like we lost 2 members. We got dropped from Metal Blade. Nosferatu didn't sell. We had put our all into that album, all of us. Every member had put everything into it.
I remember Nosferatu.
And then it just didn't happen. And so, the label drops us, and we lose 2 members, and then we try to regroup, and James and I do another kind of demo trying to get re-signed, and no one would touch us, man. And so it was like, I was just destroyed. I was devastated, man. I mean, I was at the point where I just said, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And then you start to kind of analyze your life. You're like, man, I'm like 20, I was like 27, 28.
Still very young. Still.
Yeah, but I was already like, man, I want to have a house. I don't want to live with my grandparents anymore, and I don't have a car, and because we were on the road, and we come back, we were on the road, and come back, and it just I didn't have. Back then, I knew I couldn't have one girlfriend, because you can go out on the road, and you know what happens, at least back then.
Right.
And so I was like, I just felt it was unfair to like put some girl through that,
Right.
But then I got to that point where I was like, man, I kind of want to have, a family. I want like what all my friends have. Most of my friends were already married, had kids, divorced, paying child support, and I was still, a bachelor with long hair, and trying to do the rock and roll thing, and it just got to that point where I was like, well, I hate playing now. I don't want to play anymore. I don't want to even hold this thing.
Wow.
And so I put up all my guitars, and I told James, like, I'm out, man. I can't do this anymore. And James, he was pissed, sad, devastated as well. But I mean, what could he do? I'm out. And so for many years, I'm going to say a good 5 years, I didn't play. I mean, I didn't pick it up. I didn't look at it, nothing. And so, the tone chasing kind of stopped, that obviously. And I sold, the Marshalls and everything. And, I just thought well, I'm not going to play anymore. I went back to school, and then I got a job at a corporate job, and then so all of a sudden it's like, hey, I have money. Oh man, I can buy a car now. Oh man, I can actually move out, you know. And so it was like this different life. Like, oh man, you know, this is really what I want. And then, you know, I met Imelda, my wife, and we met. We had a date on July 22nd, and then we got married on July 22nd. The very next year. I mean,
Oh,
we didn't
man.
even, you know.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
like 6 months into it, you know, I was like, will you marry me? You know.
That's
and
beautiful.
here we are 27 years later, and so
I've been blessed to be at your house, and,
Yeah,
I've
man.
seen you and your family, and it's always been an absolutely wonderful experience. Not just the experience in it itself, but I mean, this is a while back, but to like just see your family, you know, see your
Yeah.
daughter like rock the what was it? What had just come out,
Oh, she was playing
Guitar
the little
rock.
guitar.
playing Eric Johnson and stuff.
Yeah, I forgot what it was. With the
Yeah.
little colors and stuff.
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero, yeah.
But
yeah.
just the compassion of your family altogether. God bless you. I'm glad you guys went
Thank
on
you,
that
man.
date.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, this is going to be kind of a long part of my life here, but so I didn't really play too much. I did get a gig with a Tejano band for a little bit to help me pay for my wedding. Because Tejano bands back then, they were playing all the time, and I was making like $200 a pop. So I was like, oh, this is good money. You know, I don't think I ever saw that much money with Hellstar almost, you know. Yeah, and so the Tejano thing was happening. So, okay, I play, you know, and so I did that for about a year and a half or so. We got married. I paid, you know, for the wedding, you know, a good part of it with Tejano money. And then it was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. And the guitars went under the bed again. And then a few years later, my grandfather got ill, and he passed away from stomach cancer. And I buried him. I mean, you know, my grandfather, he's the one that I wouldn't be playing if it weren't for him, you know. He meant everything to me. He was always me. Whatever you want to do, man, I'm here for you. I'm behind you. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then when he passed away, I was like, man, again, devastated. But there was something different, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I was sad, but I felt unfulfilled. And I said, it was good. It's going to be like my 39th birthday. And I told Imelda, I said, you know what? I think I need to jam out. You know, I want to get some friends to come over and play for my birthday. And she was like, oh, yeah, fine. You know, and I said, well, I got to buy an amp now, you know. So I bought a little Line 6 amp.
And, oh, man, you started all over.
Yeah, so I bought a little Line 6, and then I called Jerry, I called Rob Trevino, Frank Ferrera, who played on Nosferatu and Distant Thunder, and we didn't have any vocals, so they came over and they were just like, well, what do you want to play? I was like, well, do you guys remember any of the Hellstar songs? They're like, yeah, let's play Burning Star. And so we played Burning Star, we did Evil Rain, we did, you know, about 4 or 5 songs. And I felt so good after that. And I said, that's it. I need to do this again, you know, because he wanted me to do it, you know, and he was yeah. And so yeah, it was from then on. Then, you know, Rob and I would call each other, come on, man, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. And so we put together what became a band called Eternity Black. And then the tone chasing began again. You know, we were using the Madison cabinets and all kinds of stuff, and then Rob Chavez out of San Antonio had Eternity Black play on one of his showcases, and so we became very good friends after that. And then he came up with the idea, like, hey man, you know, the Remnants of War is going to be 25 years old next year. Why don't you, you know, you already got almost the whole band together. You got Russell, Rob, and yourself. You just get Jerry and James to come on board. And I was kind of like, man, I don't know. It's a lot of water in the bridge, and I don't know. I don't even know if James would want to do that. But he started talking. He goes, Jay, man, James said he's down. So I said, okay, well, let me call him up, and we started talking, and he's like, yeah, let's do this, man. It'll be cool. We'll just do Remnants of War from beginning to end. And he came over for the first rehearsal for that 25th anniversary show. Again, we're sitting there going, whoa, what do you guys want to warm up with? And he's like, I don't know, you want to do Burning Star? And none of us thought how important that was to say, let's do Burning Star. That was the first song James and I wrote together. So, it's like, well, let's do Burning Star. And it's like, all right. So we start playing it, and then James starts singing, and I turn around and I look at James, and I'm like, I'm 16 again. I'm like, I'm that kid, just, and James is that kid, and we never. After that, we just kept playing, So.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, we did.
So glad you did.
Yeah, we did the album. I mean, we did the show, and then James goes, "Hey, I thought that was gonna be it," and then James said, maybe a week or two later, he's like, "I just got a call from Italy. The Play It Loud Festival wants us to play the Remnants of War show."
Oh, I did.
And I said, "Oh, okay." Now, mind you, Imelda doesn't know anything about Hellstar, really. Now all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm going to Italy. And so she's like, oh, for what? I'm like, they want us to play in Italy. And she's like, oh, okay. I mean, she knew I had done some albums and stuff, but she didn't know the extent of the popularity of the band in Europe and whatnot. So then, right after that, we came back, and then he said, hey, they want us to go do Keep It True in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And they want Remnants of War from beginning to end. So I was like, oh, okay. So I tell her, hey, we're going to Germany now. And then it was AFM Records like, hey, we'd like to do an album with you guys. Are you going to write any new songs? So we're like, oh, yeah, we got a couple new songs we can throw at you, And so that's how it kind of started again, And that's,
It
so.
started in a big way, man.
Yeah, I mean, because
Going out of the country to play festivals.
yeah, I mean, it's like the
both of those festivals are huge.
yeah, especially the Keep It True was like, whoa, man,
Yeah.
and
And the way Keep It True, especially Keep It True, there's people. I tell people about Keep It True. I say, man, you can go butt naked. You walk in there, you walk out. It's like a heavy metal flea
yeah,
market.
yeah,
It's like everything.
yeah,
And there's no squabbing.
yeah,
It's like a heavy metal family.
yeah, oh yeah,
Man, they embraced that. So they embraced you guys so well, man.
yeah, man, it was big. It was big. I remember my grandfather always wanted to go to Germany, and I remember being backstage and being like, oh man, he would have loved this. And I kind of got lost in that moment, and I almost got kind of teary-eyed while I was back there. And then Jerry had this habit. He always would shake my hand before the show, but he would shake your hand real weird, like put your hand out. So he would kind of bring his hand like kind of curled like this.
Oh, yeah.
So he came up to me and goes, hey, you ready? And I turned around. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm ready, man. And then I listened. I was like, oh, damn, the end of the intro was about to finish.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh, shoot. So then I kind of broke out of that, and I walk out, and I see all those people, and I just, like, put my fist up. And they did it.
All right, where were we? Cheers.
Cheers. I don't even know where were we?
My bad. We're talking about the band.
Oh, Santa Oscuridad. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a different outlet, for me. It's a little more straightforward. It's not, as complex as like some of the stuff that we do with Hellstar.
But it's been spoken. It's been sung in Spanish.
Yeah, it's all in Spanish. It's all in Spanish. We got one song that we did in English so far, but I mean, just that's almost like a novelty for us to sing in English,
You guys just played San Antonio. How was that? What was that like?
It was pretty cool. I mean, it was
San
New Year's.
Antonio always kind of
Yeah,
receives
yeah.
you very
New
well.
Year's Eve was it was a little different, because I mean people just don't go out on New Year's Eve anymore. But the people that were there for when Santa Oscuridad played, it was a good response. Usually the response we get is like, I didn't realize you guys were singing in Spanish till like halfway through the set.
Because good music is good music.
They're just like, oh, that's just cool.
It's like Del Castillo. You don't even know
Then
what
they're like,
language they're singing.
hey man, I think he just sang that in Spanish, and then they're like listening, like, oh, it's all in Spanish. Oh, okay, cool.
That's awesome.
We had some people. We did one show in San Antonio, and there was a lot of people that were like, that was so cool. I understood everything, because everybody speaks Spanish in San Antonio, like, oh. And I said, well, we'd like to come back and maybe play with one of the other like Spanish metal bands here in San Antonio. And they were like, you're it, man. There's nobody's doing it,
That's awesome.
And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, we're so underrepresented, I mean, we're the number 2 language in the United States,
Yeah.
and especially like San Antonio, where you can't go into a restaurant and everybody doesn't, everybody speaks Spanish, and so it made me feel a little sad, but at the same time, I'm like, well, you just got to keep coming back, and maybe somebody else will,
I think what
do
you're
that,
doing is great, man.
Yeah, it's
And
cool,
it's almost like it's like you always think it would be more common, but
Yeah.
it's just your mindset. You're doing it.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
And the funny thing was, it was like a whim. Rudy Rocha's the other guitarist. He plays in the band La Fiebre, which is a very big Tejano band, and but he's always been. I mean, you'll see him at all the metal shows. He's metal, And we went to go see some friends play, doing a rock en español, and they were doing a tribute. So they were playing like Maná and Juanes and stuff like that, very poppy type stuff. And I tell Rudy, we'd really been drinking. I said, man, the only thing missing in rock en español is rock. There's no like,
Right.
cool heavy songs or anything. And he goes, let's do it. We need to do that then. Let's put a band together and we'll write, hard rock metal in Spanish. Because his band is all in Spanish, Fiebre. And so the bass player walks off, that's Ray, and we go, hey man, we're putting a band together. You want to be our bass player? And he was like, oh, you two guys are putting a band together? I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be in Spanish, but it's gonna be like metal, hard rock metal. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll be your bass player. I'm like, cool, man. And then so he knew, Ray knew Jaime Recio, who's our drummer, and so he called him up and goes, hey man, I got a drummer. He's down to do it. So he just wants to hear what we got. So that night I went home. I wrote about 3 songs, and I demoed them, and I sent them to Jaime and the rest of the guys, and they're like, yeah, we like this. Yeah, let's do this. And then the singer for that band is Juan, and so we said, hey, you think Juan would be down for singing in the band? And again, he heard the song, goes, I have lyrics, I'm coming in. And yeah, he came in, he sang the songs in Spanish and everything. I was like, oh, this is good. I like it,
Awesome,
Yeah, it was really cool. And I think the other thing, kind of like with James, that Juan doesn't have that typical metal voice or anything. He's just kind of like his own he's got like his own style and stuff. So it sets us apart from a lot of those bands,
You sound heavy.
Yeah.
You get the heavy sound.
Yeah. But he's got like kind of
But the contrast makes it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Has a much cleaner voice,
Yeah.
and I mean he can get a little gritty, but it's
This
almost
is
that
great
point. It's
for
like
you, though,
yeah.
right? This is
Yeah, it's
like,
cool.
What would you want to,
Yeah.
to have like?
It makes it sound original, and that's the whole thing. And I think that's why.
As a musician, it should be for you. It should be refreshing because you don't want to repeat 2 things.
Oh no, I mean
Yeah,
I
Hellstar,
I always tell people like, well, I mean, I could write some more complicated stuff, but then, well, why don't I just do, why would I do another band that sounds just like the band I'm already in,
Right.
So, Yeah, there's a little bit more like groove stuff with Santa Oscuridad, but yeah, we're working hard, man. It would just hopefully he can recover to the point where he can sing again. He said, I think end of March, maybe he'll be able
Well,
to
that's
sing again.
first and foremost, man. Wish
Yeah,
you a full, speedy recovery.
yeah,
And
for sure.
hope to see you again.
Yeah.
With him.
Yeah, because it's fun to play with those guys, you know.
Yeah, man. The gigs
Yeah.
look a lot of fun. Man.
Yeah, yeah.
And you got a bass player that never smiles.
He smiles.
I call him Smiley. Right? That's my nickname for him.
Shug is what
Shug.
that's what you know Benjamin Livingston.
Right.
He calls him Shug, like Sugar Ray. Shug.
Larry, man, it's been such a in-depth interview, man. That like, I've been getting to hear you during our breaks, just play guitar before and
Yeah.
after. But I know how you play. You know.
Kind of sloppy. I just got this guitar, so it's yeah. I always think I don't ever think of myself as a shredder, but I like
Who are
playing.
some of your influences?
I like those early guys, you know, Page and Richie Blackmore and Iommi and Alex Lifeson and you know Ace Frehley.
Like to fuck out though? Like was there one guy that just like
Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen the first time, but then Randy, man. You know, I was actually we were almost going to talk about that. My brother went to see Motorhead and Ozzy.
Was Randy playing?
Yeah, Randy was playing, and so
Wizard was, huh?
he goes, yeah. He said he came home and he calls me. He said, "Hey, dude, if you get a chance, go buy Ozzy Osbourne's new solo album." He said, "This guitar player is unbelievable." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." So
you
know,
have you not heard?
I hadn't heard the album yet.
So
you know,
didn't hear Crazy Train yet?
no, nothing. I hadn't heard nothing.
Okay.
And so I buy it, and I'm like,
Seriously,
"Holy
this was
shit!"
you went and got
man."
the album, and
Yeah.
that was your first experience with Randy.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm just out of my curiosity has to know this.
Yeah.
I heard Crazy Train.
Yeah.
Went to Clifton the next day, and like everybody that had heard it, we couldn't shut up.
Yeah. No, I hadn't heard anything. I just going sight unseen from my brother telling me go buy this album.
You could do it.
I go buy it that day I think, and I bring it home, and it's like, oh, this is it. This guy. He had the.
I can't imagine.
He had the. You know, like Eddie was. Well, Eddie's Eddie. You know, he's king, and the tone and all that stuff, but Randy had a certain darkness to what he was doing. You know.
Yes.
And so I love that about it. That it wasn't very happy sounding, but it was good, you know.
And that Van Halen embodied happiness.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, jolly.
Yeah. And so so I listen and you know I start trying to learn the songs and whatnot, and so I started really following him, and I used to stand on stage left because that's where Randy stood,
Right.
and so I was like, he's my hero now, and so they come through, and it's on the Diary of a Madman show, and I'm there. I'm like, oh man, this guy's fucking badass. He's amazing,
You saw him live?
Yeah, I got to see Randy live,
Wow.
and then like a couple of weeks later, he dies in the plane crash. So, and I remember it was right after school. I was driving, and they said, Randy died in a plane crash, and uh, I used, and then I
Can't
said,
imagine, man.
I said, you know, let's go. You know, I take her home, and I go home, and just so sad. And so the next time we were gonna do any kind of practice or whatever, I tell the guys, I'm not, I can't stand on that side anymore. I need to stand on the other side. And they're like, what's up? I said, I don't want to stand on this side anymore. I need to stand on the other side. I'm not worthy of standing on that side where Randy stood. So that's why I stand on stage right now.
Oh
So
man,
ever
I never
since
knew
then,
that.
yeah, ever since then that's why I stand on stage right. It's every time I stand on stage right, it's an homage to Randy.
Your things that you do and stories are just like there's just so much behind it.
Yeah, man, for
There's
sure.
a lot of integrity and love behind everything that you do, man. It's very honorable to hear all this, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
So yeah, Randy. Post Randy, did anybody freak you out?
Oh, Ingve,
Oh man,
Um, but
he's so unlike everybody. Still to this day,
yeah,
his
yeah. I mean,
tone, his
yeah.
attack, his phrasing, and everything's just like
I
God.
just,
He's so
but comes a point where it's like, well, I want to hear like a cool song. I know you can do what you do. But
But
um,
when we're young, when
we
you're Ingve,
played with Ingve a couple of times, man. In Europe, we did a couple of shows, a couple of festivals with him, and yeah, he was quite the character.
I can't.
Yeah,
I played a guitar boat thing one time,
yeah.
Axis and Cruise and
He didn't
whatever.
talk to us. He
And
didn't.
he was there.
Yeah,
He played, and he was amazing.
yeah,
But I will admit to the fact that it was kind of weird because he was on a ship,
yeah,
And Ingve's amazing. He's an amazing showman. He's like he just doesn't miss a note. And he had like every marshal and every marshal had behind him,
yeah,
like cabinets. It was like a city of marshals. But he had his band stuffed in a corner, like literally, like the drummer was on top of the bass player, on top of the keyboard player.
yeah.
They were like stuffed in a corner. I just thought that was kind of weird.
When,
Because
when,
growing up, like the drummers in the middle,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it don't matter if you can
yeah,
still be Ingve,
yeah.
It's like that to me is not. It was symmetrically, it was like watching
Well,
a show. It was
when
kind
we
of
played with him, the Hanson brothers were still in the band, and
those dudes can rip.
the singer was he was in Deep Purple, Stone Cold.
Oh,
Um, what's his
he just
name?
he just shaved his head. Well, no, he just came up with. Yeah, his album with Ingve is like incredible. Jolyn Turner.
Yeah, Joe Lynn. He was the singer, and Joe Lynn was really nice. He was really cool. So were the
Incredible
Johansson brothers were really cool to us too. But like I said, like Ingve didn't like even say hi or anything. It was weird. It was just kind of weird. We were at catering and the Ingve's band was sitting at this table and we sat at this table and Ingve was at this one little single table off to the side. And so I was like, well, that's kind of weird. I wonder what's going on there. And so I walked over to one of the guys in the band, like, hey, I wanted to say hi to Ingve. You think it'll be cool? And they're like, no, man, don't do it. Man. Don't do it. I was like, oh,
Unless you got some donuts.
okay, man. Oh, I don't like donuts. No, he did. We just left him alone, man. And another funny thing on that tour was I was standing. There was a hallway that led to the stage, and there was the dressing rooms. So I saw, the band starts trickling through, and I'm standing there like, hey, man, have a good show and whatnot. And they're like, yeah, thank you. And break a leg. And then the road manager comes and goes, hey, man, you're either going to have to go out into the audience or go back into your dressing room. And I was like, why? He goes, Ingve's getting ready to walk down the hall, and he can't see anybody as he walks to the stage. And I was like, oh, man, that's right. The whole band went through, and he wasn't with them. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll go back in the dressing room, And I kind of left the door open and let him walk. There he goes.
There's Elvis. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
But I mean, that's my experience with Ingve. So take it for what it's worth. I don't think it was a good experience. It didn't show him in a very good light. But I had a hard time with fans in the beginning too. I wasn't the most accessible person, A lot of times I look back at my life and go like, God, I wish I would have done that a little bit differently, but at least, I realize my mistakes, and now, I understand, like, hey man, they don't have to be here. They don't have to come see you play. They don't have to ask you for a pic. They don't have to ask you for a picture, an autograph. They don't have to. They do it because, you mean something to them. And they just want like this much of your time, just that much, And so
that's
now,
what you're doing now.
yeah, that's
like
what I do.
Throughout these years, you're still maintaining that, and that's what you do. I mean, no matter how you really look at it, to me, it's both bands still thrive, and you anytime you put this thing around you, you're going out there, and it's more than just a dude playing guitar. You know what I mean? It's just a lot of love, and throughout so many years, you impact. So it's just more than just playing notes out of this thing.
Yeah.
I know you personally, and like it's just just as a human being, a beautiful soul having a human experience, and then strapping a guitar on. Nope, I don't know too many people that deserve.
Man, I
deserve
mean,
that thing around.
I know
Went
that,
to your house, man.
yeah.
And your studio, and like you talking about. I was just listening to you because I didn't know about that interval where you didn't play, and then to think back, you talking about line 6, and I was thinking, man, I've been to Larry's house. Like it's an insane studio.
Yeah.
Like, it's incredible. You got everything. It's like thanks for keeping the fire. You have some insane drive in you.
Thanks, man.
Tell me about the. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
I went earlier on while the cameras weren't rolling. We were talking about some of our peers and stuff like that. I know Jeff Loomis and you are pretty good friends. You were telling me about your 7-string experience and you guys trading guitars.
Yeah.
I want if you wouldn't mind, just repeating that for the people.
Yeah, man. I mean, Jeff and I met at a NAMM show, and it was really funny because we went to NAMM, and it's a lot of rock and roll going on there, and so we were walking around, and I see him. He's at the Ingle booth, and I go, oh man, there's Jeff Loomis. Rob Trevino and I were at NAMM together, and I go, let's go say hi to him real quick, and we were like, we're not gonna fanboy out. We're just gonna say hello, and shake his hand, maybe take a photo, and then leave him alone.
Right.
It's Jeff Loomis, Nevermore. And so we go to walk up there, and then the kid walks up and starts talking to him. Like, oh, okay, we'll wait, And then he talks to this guy, and the guy leaves, and they're like, oh, okay. So I walk up to Jeff, and I go, hey, Jeff, my name's Larry Bergen, and I play in a band called, and he goes, Hellstar. And then he starts going, he starts humming the Whore of Babylon, an instrumental that we have. He starts humming it to me, and I was like, I'm shaking his hand like, yeah. I'm like freaked out that he knows anything about Hellstar. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's me, man. And he goes, dude, man, nice to meet you. And I said, hey Jeff, do you mind can we take a photo with you? And so we go to like take a photo, and we're like looking at the camera, and my friend is going to take the photo, and he's got his arm around us, and he goes, when Nosferatu came out, I stole my mom's car so I could go buy the album on the day it came out. And I was like, what the fuck? It's like, what? And then she takes a picture. It's like, oh shit, I'm sorry. Let's take it one more time. And so, he takes a picture, she takes a picture, and I go, what? And he goes, yeah, man, we'd been following you since Distant Thunder. And so when Nosferatu came out, I wanted to buy it the day it came out. So I stole my mom's car, and I went to the record store, and I bought it. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know what to say. So he goes, what are you guys doing? And I said, well, we have a photo shoot with Jackson and EVH. And then after that, we don't have anything. He goes, well, I'll go see you guys. So it's upstairs? I go, yeah. And he goes, okay, I'll see you guys later. And I'm like, all right, so Rob and I walk off. We're both thinking, he's not going to go up there. We felt it was like the total, we love you, babe, it's rock and roll, and And so we go up there, we're doing the photo shoot, and then I see the door open and he walks in. And I'm like, hey, there's Jeff Loomis. And so, we finish our photo shoot, and then he comes up. He's like, are you guys done? And I'm like, yeah. He said, hey, let's go grab a drink. I was like, okay. So the elevators in the convention center, they're huge and they're going down. Oh, yeah. So it was Juan Garcia from Body Count now. Oh, right. Yeah, and it was Steve Smythe, who he was with his own band called One Machine, but he also, Steve Smythe played with everybody, Vicious Rumors, Testament. He had finished a stint with Forbidden. That's how we got to be friends with him. And it was like Steve, and then Jeff Loomis, and then Rob, and then me. And I tap Rob on the shoulder. I'm like, that's Jeff Loomis. Jeff Loomis. We shouldn't even be on this elevator with Jeff. I don't know how we're going. Maybe when we get to the bottom, we should go somewhere else. And so no, we hung out, and then he goes, we go to the bar. He goes, oh, the prices are too much, man. Let's go to my hotel. He was right across the way from the convention center. So we went over there. We had a couple of drinks, and we were talking, and Jeff's so humble and down to earth. And he goes, what are you guys doing later? I said, we're going to the NAMM Jam, And he goes, oh, okay, yeah. I think I'm going to go. I'll see you guys there. And I thought, okay. So he leaves, we leave. And I thought, well, that's the last time I'll probably see Jeff Loomis. But that was cool, So we're at this NAMM Jam thing at the Grove. And I feel, tap, I turn around, and it's Jeff. And he's like, hey, man, I wanted to ask you, like, who wrote that riff on, Baptized in Blood? Like, who came up with this? I was like, oh, that's mine. And he starts, we start talking some shop, and he goes, hey, man, here's my number, and, let's keep in touch. Let's give me a text or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, sure, shit, yeah. And we've been friends ever since, Yeah. And so the funny thing, now getting back to the guitar, is he called me up and he goes, hey man, oh no, I think he texted me. He texted me a picture of a white RR24, Jackson. And if you're familiar with him, it's the Randy Rhoads model, but it only has one pickup and one volume knob. Right. And it's got a black. This one was white with a black binding. And he goes, don't you have one like this? I said, yeah, I have one. I have two of them. I have a red one, a black and red one, and I have the white and black. He goes, man, I was trying to buy this one, and someone sold it from under me. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And he goes, would you be interested in trading it? I was like, yeah, sure, man. So he sends me a picture of a beautiful Charvel San Dimas, and then he sends me a picture of a 7-string as well. Are you interested in either one of these? I was like, yeah, man, I'll trade you for the Charvel.